I think the answer would be similar for both of us. We'd need a bunch of extra information to go on. Either information that, like for me, it would have to be like, oh, we found sources which explain a lot of this stuff, and it has nothing to do with Muhammad, and we see why things were made up and so on, and where this information came from, and how it was fabricated and so on. And I'm guessing for Robert, it's going to be similar in that, like, oh, if you suddenly found, like, in a wall of a mosque, you found a 7th century manuscript or something like this, which is talking about these. I don't know, but what do you thought?
With one inscription, we can kind of dismantle the entire Islamic narrative of early Islam. That's this inscription. As you see, it's not written in Arabic, it's written in Greek. What does the inscription start with? What is at the beginning of the inscription? A cross. Okay, that's interesting. The seal of the prophets. According to the biographical literature, you have this story of Sergius Bahira, who sees the young Muhammad when he's on a caravan expedition, and he sees some kind of mark between the shoulder blades. It says, Antah al-Khatam al-Nabayin, you're the seal of the prophets. And this is what everybody's expecting. It's some kind of a mark, and according to Waqidi and Nas, young Muhammad would walk through town saying, Ana al-Khatam, I am the seal. Good. No idea. What is interesting, we have this in, the Orthodox people will know this, the seal of the prophet is a term used for John the Baptist on the Orthodox feast days of his conception and of his beheading. We find this in Syriac. Shalma Rik Khatamiun de Navia, referring to Christ. In a Jewish commentary referring by Malbim, it's rather late, but Chotam Hanaviim, referring to Malachi, the last of the prophets. Where does this term come from? As I mentioned earlier, we find allusions to Tertullian in the Quran, among others. So this is a big problem if you want to locate the Quran in Mecca and Medina, because who's going to read Tertullian in Mecca and Medina? And I don't know, but Arabic translations of Tertullian, Latin to Arabic in Mecca, there might have been a translation bureau, but I don't know, but Arabic translations of Tertullian, Latin to Arabic in Mecca, there might have been a translation bureau, but good. Tertullian, early 3rd century, one of the earliest church fathers, certainly the earliest of the Latin church fathers in Carthage, referring to Daniel, why Daniel said, vision and prophet were sealed, because Christ is the signet of all prophets, fulfilling all that had in days bygone been announced concerning him, for since his advent and personal passion, there is no longer vision or prophet. Blah, blah, his advent seals vision and prophecy. What is he here referring to? Daniel 9:24. The point here is you can't really use the Hebrew Bible because Tertullian is not using the Hebrew Bible. He's probably using a version of the Septuagint closer to the Theta recension. This is the prophecy of the 70 weeks in Daniel 9. Good, we won't get into the grammar here. The basic argument is one of the proofs that Jesus is really the Messiah is that he came when he was supposed to have come right on time with the prophecy of the 70 week years. Good, it involves some mathematics, I won't get into that. The point being that the argument Tertullian is making in his writing against the Jews, you reject the Messiah, But listen, in your Old Testament, Daniel 9, the prophecy of 70 week years, says when the Messiah would arrive. Good, he explains it in complicated Latin in the part preceding. The guy arrived smack dab on time at the minute, more punctual than British Rail. What is the argument here, the seal of the prophets? It is, once the Messiah is there, you no longer need prophets. Why? Because the only job of prophets is to announce the coming of the Messiah. So once the guy is there, so John is the last of the prophets. This is why in the Orthodox liturgy still, John the Baptist is called the seal of the prophets.
So to give us an overview, so we can see what's happening here from the 7th to the 8th centuries. The Jews debate whether Nehemiah ben Huziel was the Messiah ben Joseph. So before 614, Messiah ben Joseph is mentioned in their writings, but no mention of Nehemiah ben Huziel because he hasn't entered the scene at that point. Then from the 620s to the 740s, Nehemiah ben Huziel is referred to as the Messiah ben Joseph. Then, strangely, in the 750s, Nehemiah ben Huziel is suddenly dropped. He's no longer mentioned as the Messiah ben Joseph.
Like for me, it would have to be like, oh, we found sources which explain a lot of this stuff, and it has nothing to do with Muhammad, and we see why things were made up and so on, and where this information came from. And
so we're going to go through these 12 sources, and I'm just going to give you a little snippet just to make the point. So we have the Agat Messiah, which is pre-614, which means an account of the Messiah. Rome is the only world power mentioned. Nehemiah is not mentioned. It prophesies he, Gog, forces entry and kills him, Messiah ben Joseph, in the streets of Jerusalem. So why isn't Persia mentioned? Is probably because it's long before that time. And then if we go to this one, which is in English, the signs of the Messiah. So this would be 3 years after Nehemiah was killed. It says they will pass a decree banning the holy place, the Lord, and the Torah. Messiah ben Joseph, and his name is Nehemiah ben Huziel. Thereupon all Israel will flee into the deserts. Now, Murad, is there anything in the Quran about banning entry to the holy place? Is there anything on those lines?
Well, there is always this word, يَصُدُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. The way I translate it is, they intercept the believers from going into the way of God. But this way of God, I think it refers to Jerusalem, all over the Quran.
Yeah.
So this might be what you are talking about.
Yeah. So this would, based on this Jewish text, this would suggest the rationale behind that text. So it's not Mecca being referred to; it's actually Jerusalem. This is called the 10 signs. Now, in the Quran, what is the word for signs in the Quran?
Well, it's ayah, but this ayah is the final Arabization. The actual Syriac word is atha, with 3 dots on the kursi. So atha, it became ayah, and this means sign.
All right, atta. Now, otat there sounds to me like it's very similar to that word with different vowelization. Would that be right?
Well, looking at this word, it might be very close.
Yeah.
Asiroth maybe Ashar or Ashara, and Otot would be Atha, would be Ayah. 10 signs, so maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the signs that says, the Holy One, blessed be he, will produce at the time Messiah ben Joseph, whose name is Nehemiah ben Huziel. He will approach Jerusalem and capture it, and all Israel will hear and gather themselves to him. But this gathering is an important part of Jewish thinking around the Messiah. And there are 43 passages in the Quran referring to a gathering. Next one, the great palaces. 40 years before Messiah ben David comes, whose name is Menachem ben Amiel, will come Nehemiah ben Huziel, a man of Ephraim ben Joseph, and he will stand forth in Jerusalem and call all Israel to gather to him there. Shirvan, king of Persia, will pierce Nehemiah ben Huziel. Here the story is different. So here it's suggesting that it would be the Persians, or it was the Persians that killed Nehemiah. But they tend to play, the writings play around with who exactly killed Nehemiah. We get to the 630s, and we have the book of Zerubbabel. All Israel will mourn Nehemiah ben Huziel, who was slain. His corpse will be thrown before the gate of Jerusalem, but the beasts and the birds will not touch it. And then another quote is, Messiah ben David will come, Menachem ben Amiel will come, and Nehemiah and Elijah. 650s, the signs of Rav Shimon ben Yohei. The 8th sign is, the Holy One, blessed be he, will suddenly bring forth Nehemiah ben Huziel, who's Messiah ben Joseph. The 9th sign, 30 eminent Israelites and this is really interesting. 30 eminent Israelites will enter along with Nehemiah ben Huziel, and they will bring him, which is Armalus, which is Heraclius, a Torah scroll. Now, the Jews referred to Heraclius consistently as Armalus. It's got a mythological name for him. He will say, I do not believe in this Torah. Sounds remarkably similar to a story in the Hadiths, which of course is not historical, but it's interesting how similar it is. So in the Hadith version, a group of Jews came and invited the messenger of Allah. They placed a cushion for the messenger who sat on it and said, bring the Torah. And then it was then brought. He then withdrew the cushion from beneath them and placed the Torah on it, saying, I believed in thee and in him who revealed thee. So it's interesting. In the Jewish version, you have Heraclius saying, I do not believe in thee or in this Torah. And in the Muslim version is you have Muhammad saying, I believed in thee. Pirkei Mashiach, the 8th century, chapters of the Messiah. And King Nehemiah the Messiah will depart from them, and they will go to Jerusalem, and Nehemiah will be killed with them. King Messiah is lovely, proclaiming victory to Israel. Nisroch Rav Shimon ben Yohei. Okay, the mysteries of Rav Shimon. And note in 750, Messiah ben Joseph is no longer equated with Nehemiah ben Huziel. So this is a crucial year. So we know that this was written in 750. Okay. It says, these are mysteries which were revealed to Rav Shimon ben Yohei when he was forced to hide in a cave. What the evil kingdom of Edom did to us, was it not enough for us, and the kingdom of Ishmael also? So here we have the Jewish reaction to the kingdom of Ishmael taking over from the Jews. And so because of this taking over, they've lost faith in Nehemiah ben Huziel being the Messiah, because if he had been the Messiah, this shouldn't be happening to them. And it's no mention of Nehemiah ben Huziel. So the Jews no longer believe that he is the Messiah. The army of Gog will ascend and destroy Jerusalem and kill Messiah ben Joseph. At that time, the Jews viewed Rome or the Byzantines as Gog, from what I've read. If we move on then, the Book of Beliefs, 10th century. Again, Nehemiah ben Huziel is no longer mentioned. There is now a note of doubt about whether Messiah ben Joseph will ever come. Now, if you hear, you have a period from the 620s to the 740s where they think Nehemiah ben Huziel is the Messiah ben Joseph. And then the 750s, he's dropped, okay? So let's go back to the left-hand side of this screen here. You can see that the Persians made an alliance with the Jews to conquer Jerusalem in 614 AD. Husro and Nehemiah ben Huziel is involved in that, but Jews later fell out with the Sasanians. And then we have the Chinese source Xu Tang Shu, which reports via a Taiyaye envoy in 651 that a lineman tells a camel herder of a weapons cache. This was the start of a separatist regime. Now, who formed an alliance to conquer Jerusalem in 614? It was the Jews and the Persians. So we see a parallel in the Chinese source, which potentially could be the lineman is the Persian side, the camel herder is would be the Jewish leader, which would have been in Iraq at the time. So that's a potential explanation. In the 750s, then the Tang government, 756 to 758 AD, were told a new story of how the Taiyaye were founded. So in this version, there was a man from Ben Yi Shi Shen, Banu Hashim is how it's often interpreted, Banu Hashim, called Moki Mo, or possibly Mahmed or Muhammad, who was very brave and wise and was hailed as the king by the tribe people. There were 11 persons who came, and according to their rank as Moshe, messiahs, were transformed into kings. After this, the masses gradually gave their allegiance, and subsequently, Persia was extinguished and Byzantium was crushed. I don't know if that's making sense there, but we have a kind of a historical take from the Chinese source in the original envoy of 651, basically saying that it's an alliance between the lineman and the camel herder, which could figuratively refer to the Persians and the Jews. And now we have the introduction of Mahmed from the Banu Hashim. But you can see that it's a Persian thing, not an Arab thing at this point. Okay, and it seems to be involved with messiahs. Any thoughts on that?
You know that this word Banu Hashim, it's in the Bible. Do you know that?
I do. Actually, I have something coming up about that. Do you want... Is this the one that you had, I wonder? This is a midrash on Proverbs 19:21. Rabbi Huna counted amongst the 7 names of the Messiah also Hashim Sidkenu, the Lord our righteousness. So Hashem, according to a Jewish text, is the name or one of the names of the Messiah. So isn't it interesting that Muhammad comes from a tribe called Hashem? Any thoughts?
Yeah, Hashem, it would be Hashem, meaning the name, which is Yahweh,
Exactly.
not
Yeah.
Allah.
Yes. Exactly. Are there any Jewish sources calling the Messiah the Mahmed? So I'd like to move into that area now, if I may. So this is a familiar one. We had an inscription with a reference to Mahmed. And before any Muslims get excited about this, what year was this inscription from? Do any of you know?
Yeah, well, this is the one from 523, so it's the 6th century.
Exactly. This is, yeah, exactly. It's the 6th century. So clearly, this has nothing to do with the Muhammad the Arab at all. It's a totally different one. And we go into the location now. It's Najran, and it's a Jewish inscription by the Lord of Jews, by the Mahmed. Okay. Now, that was really all we had in terms of the idea that Mahmed was a reference to the Messiah. But wouldn't it be interesting if in the same culture of this area, we could call it Southern Arabia and also Yemen, would it be interesting if we had parallel inscriptions following a similar formula where it refers to God and his Mahmed? We could actually look at the synonyms and see what's happening and see what Mahmed is meant, or what is meant by Mahmed here. So this is what I'm going to do. So let's just go to 548. This is actually a Christian inscription. And it says, with the power and help and support, notice that you got the triple, which obviously a Trinitarian triple reference here, with the power and the help and the support of Rahmanan, the Lord of heaven, and of his anointed one, by the power of the merciful one and his Messiah, the King Abraham. So we can see again reference to God and a reference to his Messiah. Here, we can see the pairing, the formulaic pairing, God and his Messiah. In the Jewish one, Lord paired with Mahmed. In the following Christian ones, we have Rahmanan and Lord paired with anointed one. And we have merciful one and Messiah. And we also notice that the formula seems to have fed into the Shahada, which says, I bear witness that there is no God but God, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. So even that seems to emerge from the same tradition, God and Mahmed, except they've vocalized it as Muhammad. Any thoughts?
Well, the first thing is, why did you put Muhammad there?
I'm actually just taking it as Muslims would have it today. But yes,
you've imposed that into it when you know very well that the Shahada does not have Muhammad there. It only has 4 letters, Mim Ham Mim Dal, on the coins and on the Dome of the Rock and also on the protocols. So this is an error we always do as Westerners. That is not Muhammad. That's Mahmed.
I think the answer would be similar for both of us. We'd need a bunch of extra information to go on. Either information that, like for me, it would have to be like, oh, we found sources which explain a lot of this stuff, and it has nothing to do with Muhammad, and we see why things were made up and so on, and where this information came from, and how it was fabricated and so on. And I'm guessing for Robert, it's going to be similar in that, like, oh, if you suddenly found, like, in a wall of a mosque, you found a 7th century manuscript or something like this, which is talking about these. I don't know, but what do you thought?